Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are recording today, the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung and Boonwurrung peoples of the Eastern and Greater Kulin Nation. We pay our deepest respect to their elders, past and present, and also we stand with them. We extend that respect to all First Nations peoples. We honour their sovereignty was never ceded. We acknowledge their enduring and unbroken connection with their storytelling and their deep connection to country, lands, waterways, sky, culture and communities. We stand with them in their ongoing calls for truth-telling, treaty, sovereignty, justice, and land and reconciliation. This was and always will be Aboriginal land. Before we begin, quick heads up. If you would like to explore today's topics in a bit more depth, I would highly recommend Reader's Digest hardcover version, Exploration of Australia. It's a rich and accessible account of the explorers who charted our continent with detailed maps, illustrations, and fascinating side stories, as well as Bill Peach's The Explorers series on YouTube. Well, it's a well-produced journey into the lives and challenges of those who pushed beyond the known boundaries of colonial Australia. Before we begin, quick heads up. In today's episode, we'll discuss European exploration, colonisation and displacement of First Nations peoples. This episode also includes references to frontier violence, dispossession of land, and cultural loss. So if this is not the right time for you, please feel free to skip, pause, or check out one of our lighter episodes. Of course, your well-being always comes first. And if you do choose to click on this episode, please always listen with care. Imagine trekking for weeks through thick and dense eucalyptus forest, every sound amplified by the stillness of the bush, and until you emerge into a clearing and see a broad river snaking its way through the valley, sparkling in the afternoon sun. You've reached a place that to the European eye feels like a discovery, but to the people who have been here for tens of thousands of years, it's home. Welcome to Down the Yarra, a podcast that takes you on a deep dive into the heart and soul of Naarm, Melbourne, and South Central Victoria. Whether you're a local or just curious, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Andy. Today's episode, we're charting into the footsteps and legacies of European explorers who first set their sights on Naarm, Melbourne, and the rich lands of South Central Vic. By the early 1800s, European settlement in Australia was pushing beyond not just Sydney, but Hobart as well. Whaling and sealing communities were already active along Victoria's southern coastline, and rumours of fertile inland plains were spreading like wildfire amongst the settlers. To the colonial authorities at the time, the unmapped land was a challenge, and of course a grand opportunity at the same time. Yet for the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung, Boonwurrung, Taungurung, DjaDjawurrung and Wathaurong peoples, these lands were deeply known to them, named and cared for. The coming of European settlers marked the beginning of a dramatic and irreversible changes to them and their way of life. In 1803, Charles Grimes, a Surveyor General from New South Wales, led an expedition to the along the Port Phillip coastline and up to what is now the delta of the Melbourne and lower reaches of the Birrarung, the Yarra. Grimes and his team noted that these lands had fertile soils and fresh water, but concluded that the area was unsuitable due to swampy conditions, a decision that would delay permanent settlement in the area for decades to come. Hume and Hovell, in 1824, funded partly by Governor Brisbane in Sydney and partly out of their own pockets. Set off from Picton just south of Sydney and then heading southwest, they eventually reached Corio Bay, what is now near the present-day city of Geelong. Yet mistaking it for Western Port Bay. Whoops. Their reports were of rich grazing lands and set the stage for pastoral expansion into Victoria. Major Thomas Mitchell, a Surveyor General also from New South Wales, had already charted large swaths of inland regions. On his third expedition in 1836, returning from the Murray River, he traversed through central and western Victoria. The glowing descriptions of Australia Felix, lucky Australia, a land of abundant grasslands and gentle rivers, ignited a rush of squatters into these regions. His route went on through Western Victoria and hence opened up the way to towns like Hamilton and Portland as well. In 1835, John Batman, representing the Port Phillip Association, sailed from Van Diemen's Land, modern-day Tasmania, and made his way up the delta of the Birrarung, mouth of the Yarra. His so-called treaty, his infamous treaty, was with the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung elders, was later declared invalid by Governor Richard Burke in Sydney. But yet it still remains one of the only recorded attempts by a European to negotiate land use with the Aboriginal people of the era. John Pascoe Fawkner, another founder of Melbourne, his party arrived shortly after Batman, set up camp on the northern bank of the Birrarung, the Yarra, which is now known as Enterprise Park in Melbourne CBD, in Naarm, Melbourne CBD. This competitive start between both Batman and Fawkner's camps would eventually be woven into Melbourne's founding mythology. There were explorers also moved west and north. Coastal charting by Matthew Flinders in 1802 and 1803, and later sealers and whalers, helped map the Bass Strait coast and the Otways. Inland tracks blazed by overlanders like Joseph Hawdon connected Naarm, Melbourne to Adelaide via the Western District. European exploration brought rapid settlement, which in turn brought dispossession, introduced diseases and violent frontier conflicts. Within a generation or two, many communities in southwestern Vic were displaced or dramatically reduced in number. This is why truth-telling both sides of the exploration story truly matter. Not as nostalgia for the pioneering days, but as a full reckoning with the impact of expeditions. Today, streets, suburbs and schools still bear the names of these explorers. The journals sit in archives, maps in libraries, yet alongside these records, the oral histories and cultural acknowledgements of First Nations people continue to be felt, tell of country that existed long before before the explorers actually arrived. And speaking of history, next episode we're celebrating a truly massive milestone for Naarm, Melbourne, 190th birthday. We'll explore how the city plans to mark the occasion, what has changed since its early days, and what are the threads of the community that links it to 1835 first and through to today. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. Well, that's it for today's episode, Down the Yarra. If you've enjoyed today's deep dive into the European explorers in Naarm and South Central Victoria, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe and share the podcast. And if you've got the chance, have a look at Reader's Digest, The Exploration of Australia, and check out Bill Peach's The Explorers series on YouTube as a visual comparison to today's story. Until next time, keep your eyes on the Yarra. It has many stories to tell.